and time to get back on, so we'll resume our discussion about the card swiping and security in the building.
So in order to do this, we'd be looking at needing to do the card printer and the software. Possibility of some replacements of some of the panic bars on the doors, depending upon what the compatibility is. Henry Wilson would be my first priority, I guess, but I would like to make sure that I do at least front and back doors for Valley View and the high school as well to start with, and then as we go, outfit the other doors, but have those so that we're on a single card system and we can program each staff member. So I would have district-wide access, Larry would. If someone works only in one building, they would have access to that building's doors. And only for the hours that we've set for that. So it wouldn't necessarily be 24/7 for everybody. And it gives us a whole lot more security, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a possibility that not all the panic bars would need to be replaced. Some of the ones at Henry Wilson are new because we've had doors replaced this year. And so those, odds are we would be fine with, but some of the older ones we'd need to just make sure, because not all cards and all bars read the same, so we just need to have, so that we're not trying to guess which card goes to which door and which system. I want one system and have it be uniform.
Okay. Are you also requesting to bypass the RFP process?
I am looking to at least get multiple bids on this. I may not do I'm not sure I can do a full RFP, but looking to make sure I have multiple vendors in, as I've contacted a few already to try to see what my options are, and at least get some ideas of what might be doable within this price range in a fairly short amount of time. So whether or not I can get a full RFP out before June 30th, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking maybe not.
So I have a question. If we don't have prices from vendors, we don't know exactly how much this would cost. However, you want to earmark $20,000 from the end-of-year funds, and that's what you're looking for tonight, is just to have access to those
Yes.
funds.
Yes.
I'll just throw it out there. One of my initial concerns right off the bat is our coaches. Our coaches, in my opinion, have always had a hard enough time accessing the building when they're supposed to be here, when they're proved to be here, with a key, let alone a card that's going to be programmed to let them in at a certain time or what have you. I wish I could be optimistic and say maybe it would work better for them, but we've changed keys over the years. We've heard this argument about keys, and every year we change the locks, and not every year, but every so often, and it just seems like the after-school activities, when there's less staff around to assist a coach, a layman coach who comes in and is
Right.
supposed to have practice, there have been a lot of issues. I just hope it doesn't cause more, that's all.
Well, and
So as we
yeah.
move forward with that, I hope that that's a thought. you know?
Certainly,
Yeah.
and I would be looking, so that way too, because right now our coaches aren't carrying IDs. I want them to have those as well. I want them to be identifiable. I want them to have the access that they need without necessarily a fistful of keys that go here and there. And if somebody loses an ID, they can email Larry or me immediately, and we can turn it off and reissue a new one, so that if someone finds that, they're not, gleefully accessing the building at will. So,
I just have a logistical question. If all the doors are read by cards, do you have a backup for, say, if the power goes out?
yes, there will still be keys. So
Okay.
it's not that keys are done away with, but it gives the general folks access this way.
Okay.
So, obviously, you can't have that people are locked into or completely out of a building if the power is out.
Is the security issues in such a state right now that this can't be something that's planned out a little more in next year's budget for the following school year? I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Nope, I understand that. At this point, we haven't had anything that has been egregious. I would like to think that that would continue, but again, that's cautiously optimistic. And again, if I don't have it, then I'll have to make do.
Any other questions?
Just a question. Now, say this wasn't to go through, what would the scenario look like? Would there be two different cards? I mean, what would access to SAU versus access to the school look like?
Well, it's going to be something that I'm going to need to look at least something on the fire doors in and out of the SAU anyway, both from the outside into the SAU as well as from the SAU into the schools, as our egress is going to have to go out through classroom wing for secondary egress. And so also access to bathroom facilities. We're going to need to be back and forth. And I'm going to have a way for staff to get in and out without having public access in and out. So if that means that I have to have staff with keys to get back and forth down the hallway, I want them to be wearing badges anyway, so this is a whole lot simpler going back and forth. And I think it's something that we need to move toward. But again, if I have to go Plan B, it's not ideal, but I don't know if I will be able to do this piece if all I'm doing are the doors on the SAU end of it. I don't know that the cost at once would make it worthwhile to do just that if I don't have some of the volume to bring the cost down some.
Would a system like this, or the ones that you've been looking at, assist with the problem that we've seen in all three schools of people propping doors open because they forgot their key?
Because if they're wearing the badge that they should be wearing, that's what gets them in, that's the swipe.
Well,
So it's
would
not
it
even right
alert
now.
you when a door is open for an extended period of time, or unlocked when it should be locked?
And
Okay.
we do have alarms that go off now. But right now, there's a separate swipe card, and then there's the badge. The badge would be the swipe card, it would be built into it. So that this becomes just the proximity swipe, and you're in the building.
The badges are currently produced by an outside company, aren't they?
They are.
So with this
so what
equipment, would we produce them in?
We would
inside?
be, what I would do would have Gaskasby to take the pictures the way they usually do.
Yeah.
And then if
Provide
they
the
can
image.
give us the picture files, and we can print the pictures on the badges that have the RF in it. So otherwise, there is an option of getting just a sticker that has the barcode on it that can be swiped. I would prefer not to do that. I don't want something that can be peeled off and put on something else. I want it to be built into the badge itself, because I don't want it removable and reusable. So,
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna be a no. Okay. Reports. Mr. Frida, you wanted to talk about, you at the last meeting, you went to Reaching Higher New Hampshire.
Yes, it's an education nonprofit that provides support to schools and communities around improving public education. So I put in in the packet here, two different things. The first one is just a simple flyer ready in the 603. It's a project they're doing, and if we have any kind of projects here or programs here that highlight college and career ready, we can give them a call. They'll come and take a film, make a little video of that program, and enter it in the contest, and we could win $1,000 if our program is really super cool and people like it. It will be an audience vote. So that's what the flyer is that's in that program. The other thing is the RHNH Support College Career Readiness Packet, which is the packet that they used at the meeting I was at. And just to briefly want to highlight, towards the end of that, it's a slideshow. Towards the end of that, they talk about 4 different areas in which they support communities and schools. The first one is storytellers. They talk about how to create your messaging and your story about your school to gain public support and to support the really good things that you do and really promote those. The next thing is around community organizations and organizing, again, bringing the community into the school for support and things like that so they can help us and with resources for those kinds of things. The next one is policy and regulatory experts. If we have any questions on policies and things like that, they've got some staff that understand the policies and things, and they could help us in that way. And the fourth one is technical experts. So if you're looking for any kind of things that have to do with legislation or policy or whatever, they have some technical, if not themselves, then they have people that they can sort of bring in to give us some technical resources about analyzing data or whatever it may be. They're going to continue to have these meetings. The meeting was actually to talk about how they could best support the school systems and which of these things might be favorable and which ones should they really focus on, or should it be all 4 of them, or are there extras or other things. So they'll continue to meet, and I'm going to continue to go to those meetings. If we're interested in hosting one, let me know and I'll offer, but they're going to go around the state and meet. So that's brief. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. We can certainly talk about what hosting might entail. I'd be very interested in doing something like that.
Is this the first, how long, I haven't read through this in detail yet. Did this just formulate recently, or has this been some?
A few years ago, it was sort of an offshoot of, Bill Duncan had Advancing New Hampshire Public Education, and he had the Bill Tracker. He had a website that was a blog, basically, with articles and things like that about advancing public education. And then when he got on the board of education, it sort of was, that thing sort of went away, and there was a nonprofit formed, which was Reaching Higher New Hampshire, which sort of did the same thing. They'd have a blog that puts out some articles and things like that, and they make comments on policy and on legislation that have to do with education, and support public education and things that public education should be supporting, or they feel should be supporting. You can subscribe to their email list and get a whole bunch of articles. I sent one of them around to us all regarding the ESSA stuff, and they do things like that. They'll make a video, or they'll go and talk about it, or they'll go and promote it. If we want something promoted, we can ask them to do that for us and help us with that. So it's about 3 years old, and they're just trying to sort of increase their sphere of influence and how much they could help students and schools advance.
I was reading under the panelist organizations, Parker Varney Elementary School, due to being included in this, went from a school in need of improvement in 2011 to being named the Elementary School of Excellence in 2015. That's very impressive.
Any other questions for Mr. Frieda? Thank you for attending that.
Yes,
Thanks for allowing me to go. That was really good.
The SLC, usually, Mrs. Moore might have the
She
update,
wasn't
but-
at that meeting?
Yeah,
So-
she had asked me if I could attend, and I couldn't. so.
Just a very brief overview. I've included in your packet, there's an SLC folder, and it honestly didn't occur to me to put things in it until this afternoon, so I apologize for that. But there is a one-page kind of about us that Stratford Learning Center has put together, as we were talking with director, said, a lot of people don't necessarily understand what SLC does. And so this gives a bit of an overview of the districts that they serve, as well as their mission and what their regional programs are. They provide related services and supports to, it was 8, it is now 9 member districts. They started with 2, and as those districts have broken apart and changed configurations and whatnot, and others have joined. And then they also contract out to other districts who are not member districts. We are one of the founding member districts, and as such, I'm on the executive board, and have found myself the assistant treasurer. But probably the biggest thing that came out of the last meeting this past week was changes in bylaws that have, one, changed the incorporation to now 9 member districts. And because the district numbers are getting so large, and trying to determine what exactly a quorum is so that we can have enough people there and on any given day to actually have a meeting, and then if board members are required to be there as well, so many board members from member school boards work other jobs, it's very difficult for them to be included. So they're looking to change the structure so that there is a meeting at the beginning of the year that is open to any school board member from any of the member districts to come in and kind of an orientation. Here's who we are, here's what we do, come learn about us. It'll probably be a dinner meeting. And that, much like we do with the regional board when we meet with the Lakes Region Technical Center. And then there would be a year-end report out that would be available to districts and their board member representation. Probably that might also be an evening meeting, but the rest of the meetings would be limited to the superintendents or their designees, and they're also trying to limit the designees so that, because there is already a special education directors group that meets, and so not to have them come in my place so that she's not kind of putting her input in 2 different places. And a lot of what we meet with the director on are the executive level pieces that we've got to chime in on, those pieces where, you're looking more at the related services pieces and how that works on the ground. So just restructuring and reorganizing who can sit in if I can't go, and what that looks like, and trying to make it so that we can have meetings that actually can function, because if only 2 or 3 superintendents can come out of the 9, then can we actually call that a meeting? And so looking to redefine quorum and those sorts of things.
Facilities. Yeah. You can put that in tomorrow, maybe? That just made the top of the list.
I'd just like to take a moment to recognize the staff that pitched in so hard to get everything ready for graduation. We were shorthanded quite a bit for this last month and a half, and everybody did kind of double duty, and especially Nancy Lapine and Tyler Tuttle came up from their school for 3 days to help out here to make sure everything was right for graduation. So I appreciate that.
Outstanding job.
Yes. So the school year ends July 23rd. We're gonna make preparations for our annual summer fun of stripping floors and cleaning classrooms and stripping floors and classrooms, and then putting the wax back, the floor finish back. We don't use wax anymore. So that will begin hopefully as soon as the teachers and staff are gone for the summer, or as many as go for the summer. The gyms at the high school and Henry Wilson, they're on the schedule to be redone the week of the 24th. He's going to come in and do them both in that 1 week. So they'll be out of commission for 2 to 3 weeks, at least, depending on the humidity. Didn't put this on, but I just remembered that July 29th, I'm taking the full custodial staff. Cleanorama's putting on
June
a
29th.
workshop.
June 29th.
June 29th, thank you. A month ahead. We're going over to Concord High School. It's a free training session where they'll be certified in blood pathogen and right to know, and they get to choose some different workshops they can go to through the day. And Cleanorama supplies a lunch for them and stuff, so that's going to be a day-long trip over there. And lastly, the performance contract presentation we had. We would like to request that, or ask whether we could go ahead with getting some information from some of the companies that do this to present to you, like a package of 3 different companies, 4 different, whichever, how many submit, for July 10th meeting, to see if it's something we could go ahead with.
I know when Sean from Siemens did the
Presentation.
presentation, looking at the next step would be to put out to a number of different companies who do the performance contracts to see what type of response we get, who would be interested, and then start to review those pieces from there. We would then award a bid to the contractor, who would then in turn become the contractor for all the other pieces that would be done throughout whatever projects we determined to do after the SWAT team of engineers crawls through all the buildings and tells us everything we have going right and everything that doesn't look quite as good.
Doubt they'll say much is going right in some schools.
A couple of things.
Someone make a motion to that effect? Yeah.
Add to the agenda?
Do we need a motion to add to the agenda?
Well, what we'd like to
Well-
do is move forward with putting forward that request
Request.
for interested companies to do. I forget the alphabet soup that goes with that. It's not an RFP. I don't think it's an RFQ.
No,
I don't
because
think
A
it's-
letter of interest.
Letter of interest, okay.
Submitting a letter
so,
of interest.
Looking for letters of interest to be submitted for your review for July 10th, if that's
Okay.
something you would like to move forward with.
Moved by Mr. Frida,
Second.
second by Ms. McElhenney. Any further discussion?
I'm looking for that flow chart. Show the steps. Do you already know which companies you're going to go ahead and submit that letter to, or?
No, we're looking at having them submit letters of interest to us, so who would be interested in running
There's quite a few companies out there that all do a performance
performance
contract.
contract for us. So, Tremens, Honeywell, Tremco,
Siemens,
Honeywell,
Johnson Controls.
Johnson Controls.
They all
There's
do this?
several that do, and probably more than we've listed, so putting it out to see what type of response we get, and
Is it July 10th, or would it be the second July meeting?
Well, before we start nailing down a date, before we adjourn tonight, I'd like to talk to the board about whether or not we really need 2 July meetings.
so, probably July 10th.
Or if we want to meet in the middle and do like a July 17th, but you know what I'm saying, so that
Right.
we're sort of,
Right.
whatever, we can talk about that, but I don't know. Part of me thinks that we may not need that.
Okay.
And maybe
Yeah.
we do. You can correct me if I'm wrong. but
Part of it will be determined to see how many
Nominations.
nominations I
Yeah.
have at what point.
Yeah, in which case, if we don't have, we could do a quick meeting to just do that.
True.
I mean, but we will,
Without stacking an agenda, yep.
any further discussion? All those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Okay. Athletics, I don't see Mrs. Peabody, but I
Thank
see a
you.
report. Thank you,
So,
Mary.
you have a written report. This was a general overview. Football had 38 players participate, boys soccer and girls soccer each had 16, volleyball had 19, golf had 7. Winter athletics, Boys basketball, 22 players, girls 20, unified basketball had 10, spirit had 8. Spring athletics, softball had 15, baseball had 16.
I don't think you have to read.
So,
Any questions about this report as you're looking through it? I mean, Mrs. Peabody's not here, but, I like having the numbers. I'd like to see maybe on next year's report, Henry Wilson's numbers.
sure.
Just to kind of see what, I'm just curious as to
What
what
the
the
pipeline looks like.
participation is at that level.
Just some feedback for the athletic department, and in terms of the varsity teams offering camps to the youth, that's being very well received. The pricing is really a great deal, and a lot of the parents who've given me feedback, some feedback. The football and basketball camp are both at the exact same dates and the exact same time. And those are sports that, children can play both.
Right.
So that was just some feedback,
And I meant to ask you, Larry, when you were up
Maybe more
there,
interest.
is the athletic director aware of the dates the gym will be closed down?
Yes, we arranged it with the company that's doing it.
Okay, okay, I just want to make sure, because sometimes that can be problematic with summer
Set those up back in
schedules.
February.
Okay, great. I guess I think it's a correction. I mean, scholar athletes really isn't something that you're chosen for, it's something you qualify for, right? So
Correct.
I would just say
Yeah.
qualified, because it's really, you have to meet a certain criteria that there's no choosing really. Well, I will say from the chairman's perspective that it was really nice this year not to have any athletic issues come before us. I mean, it was like a breath of fresh air, because the last few years we've had way too many. So thank you to Mrs. Peabody and everyone who assisted her. Okay, discussion on SAU 61 consultants.
Before we get into, the folks that we've had in, I want to give a little bit of background. When we started the conversation, and I know that we've had a little bit of conversation over the past couple of meetings, I think some of the concern around the consultants was based on some history of past models that have been used and how consultants have been employed in the district. And so this year, as I've looked to bring people in, first of all, this was really a year for me to be evaluating where we are, to look to see what our needs are. I'm not looking to run out and hire the world to have them come in and fix us. That's not my philosophy. I'm looking to, number one, leverage what I think is some considerable talent in-house, and also to make sure that when we bring somebody in, that it is for a need that has been determined, and it is something that is, if we're going to do it for everybody, that it's something that everybody needs to be involved in, as opposed to sit and get for the sake of taking up the afternoon, because we've got too much work to do that. We haven't had consultants in working just with administrators or on specific projects, with the exception of one school. As far as general consultancy goes, full disclosure, I do have a mentor who's working with me and will be into next year, simply because I can use a sounding board. And so, is she a consultant to the district? I guess in that she is. But she's not just a general consultant coming in and overseeing programming. She's my sounding board. We do have a couple of other administrators who are newer administrators who also have looked to have a mentor working with them. But that's not a general consultancy, that's more a, again, needing a sounding board, because I think everyone has an opportunity to learn an awful lot from those who've walked in our shoes. And if I don't have to make all the mistakes myself, I am more than willing to learn from someone else's. What we have had for professional development consultants come in, Mahesh Sharma has been here, and I have for you, this is both project-based, and it also has Professor Sharma's background, so it's kind of like the pocket that way. We can take and pass on. That's
Oh,
one each.
that's one.
That's one, yeah. So Professor Sharma is with the Center for Teaching and Learning of Mathematics. He has worked in 90 countries and in school districts all over this country in what are the non-negotiables for mathematics. He works with students as well who are dealing with dyscalculia, and really has a very clear way of helping teachers kind of see, here's the breakdown of skills that need to be taught in this sequence, so that they can unpack the standards, understand what it is that they're truly being asked to do, and how to do that despite, or maybe in spite of, the program that's sitting in front of them. It's not just about whether you're using Everyday Math or Eureka Math or MathWorks or whatever. It's about, here's the skills that are non-negotiable. This is what a student needs to master before he goes to the next level. And if he doesn't master this, here's what those holes look like when they manifest themselves here, and here's how you go back and scaffold that. Because it's not enough to say, well, he's gotten to 8th grade and he doesn't know this yet. So, no. We still have to fill in that hole, and we still need to scaffold those skills so that he can continue to move on. And so that process began on the 26th of May with grades K through 8. We went through, these are the, actually, yeah, we did do K through 8. These are what the skills look like up through this level. And then I'm looking to have him come back in and do more work with teachers. What do you do when a kid is here and you're not sure what your next steps are? How do you go back and design a program that helps a student continue to access at his grade level while he fills in those steps that are still missing for him, if they're missing? How is it that, what does this look like as it's being taught? And Professor Sharma will come in and do modeling in the classroom. I've watched him teach classes. It's fascinating. And the kids rise to the occasion every single time that I've seen him in the classroom. I think what he does is he helps to show us that we can expect more, and here's how we can do that and still maintain our full heads of hair without ripping it out in clumps. And so I'm excited about what we've gotten started. I think probably the most telling thing for me, we did this on a Friday before a long weekend. On the Monday, we had Monday off. On the Tuesday we came back, we had teachers who had rated closets for the Cuisinart rods that he was using as part of the manipulatives with the teachers, and they had them out in classes and were replicating what they had learned in the workshop with the kids that Tuesday. That told me that it was making a difference. And some of them were veteran teachers who had basically come in and said, you can't teach me anything about math. And they were so excited that Tuesday morning. Look what I'm doing. They took pictures, they sent them to me. And so that tells me this is something we need to continue. And so I don't want one-off PD. I don't want it to be just okay, well, that killed a day, let's move on. It needs to be something that starts to shift the culture. And so that's what I'm looking for there. The other piece that you have is project-based learning. This is from the Buck Institute, who is, they're kind of the folks right now as far as project-based learning. I have a trainer coming in for the 27th and 28th at Valley View. I had one grade level that was very excited about wanting to do project-based learning. And I said, all right, I'll see if I can get a trainer in, and we'll at least start there, and we'll open it up to see if anyone else is available or wants to. I had all teachers at Valley View except one volunteered to do this 2-day and possibly come back for a 3rd day in the summer if we can get it scheduled. They're so excited. And so I said, okay, we'll do this. Jamie Colucci is Buck Institute trained, but she also does her own consulting, and she's coming in as a private consultant to work with us so that she can tailor it a little bit more toward what we're looking for rather than just the Buck Institute, here's the canned piece, which is very good. I've been through their training as well. But she's going to help us tailor it specifically to what Valley View is looking to do and moving forward to do more project-based and more integrated pieces rather than having, okay, we've got 90 minutes of math and 90 minutes of reading and, we don't have time for this and we can't quite get to that. You can look at your reading and do some of the nonfiction pieces integrating the content of the other piece, and there's a whole lot of math and science that gets put into this, and let's do more and stop trying to teach things in buckets and silos and not showing kids the connections. So I'm excited about what can start there, and we're looking to, again, continue that into the next school year and spread that through as many of the other grade levels as I can, although we have some other fairly significant pieces going on in other places with NEASC and with what's happening for the talent for turnaround leadership pieces at Henry Wilson that I don't want to overwhelm and simply add more pieces to. We're trying to also be focused in what we're doing rather than saying, here's the flavor of the month and here's the next 6 things you get to do this week, because then nothing gets done well. So for the professional development at Henry Wilson, I'm going to let Jess talk some too if you have questions, but what I have is a statement from Andrea Reed, who is our consultant who's been in with us. We started with the Talent for Turnaround Leadership group in December. This is the workshop that Jess and Cynthia and I went to in DC, and then Cheryl, Jess, and Cynthia went back to Phoenix this last spring. Working with the state, we are the only school working with the state right now in this. They've kind of chosen us as a pilot group, and so we are glorified guinea pigs and the lucky recipient of a whole lot of attention, which isn't a bad thing. We have a consultant through the Northeast Comprehensive Center. Her name is Andrea Reed. She's working with us, and that part's for free through the state. This is part of what they're doing to help us get some ground moving and regain some traction. We've had some turnover at Henry Wilson. We've had some issues that are well documented, and rather than wallowing there, we're looking to say, okay, here's the conditions and what do we do to move forward and change that, rather than just say, oh, woe is us, here's where we are. And so we're part of that process. We've also been looking at some professional learning that has come out of the discussions and the data analysis for that. Really trying to tailor toward what are our specific needs and looking at giving some opportunity for really getting into the standards, understanding what it is that we're being asked to teach and what that looks like and how to move into that. As we move toward competency-based, there has to be a deep understanding of the standards and what it means to be competent to that standard. If this is what we're asking kids to know and be able to do, how do you know they know it? What's the demonstration of that? What does it look like? And so we're working on this part. Andrea Reed is also working with us on understanding by design and working with the teachers in another capacity to push forward some of that instructional piece, and also looking at our climate and culture there and helping the teachers to have a greater ownership of the process and of the leadership of the building and what's happening, and so that they can own it It's not just what's being done to them, it's what they're doing in order to improve the school where they teach. And so it's a process of understanding the strategies that go into that to give them some voice in what that looks like, and restructuring some pieces of the leadership team. And I'm going to let Jess talk more about that piece if you have questions.
So this currently is the kind of one and only consultant that we have working at Henry Wilson?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
And we did Mahesh too.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, but
Right.
he,
He
yeah,
was
and
district
he'll be
five.
coming back in the fall.
And I guess I wouldn't call, would we call Mahesh a consultant? Or is it a PD opportunity or PD situation followed up with a follow-up?
Well, I would view him as a math consultant who is helping us to lay some foundation right now, and as we move forward, may help us to look at how we're restructuring some pieces in our math programs. And I've worked with him in that capacity in another district as well. Right now, it is primarily around professional development.
And Andrea Reed was assigned to us?
She was assigned to us through the Northeast Comprehensive Center.
Okay.
And then, in the process of working with her and doing some of the data analysis, we chose to contract with her for some of those other pieces for the continuity.
Now, when we contract with a consultant, that money comes from where?
That comes out of 2A.
Grant?
Grant.
I'm just-
It's grant
for
funded.
people at
It is
home.
grant funded, yes.
Okay. Because you get questions like, I called the superintendent's office and she's off on a trip for a couple days, and where's that money coming from and what is that all about?
Right.
People
Mhm.
don't know.
Absolutely.
And so that's the questions that sometimes you're hit with.
Yep.
And so that's part of the reason why I asked for this information.
And when we were sent to DC and to Phoenix, that was paid through the DOE.
Mhm. Okay.
So,
Anything that you want to highlight about your work with Andrea?
I think just the part that probably isn't included in the bottom of that is that we are working to take the mission that was created through all the NEASC work last year and further break that down to create a mission and a vision for Henry Wilson for the next 3 years, which will drive our strategic plan. And all the project-based learning will tie in nicely to the groundwork we're laying now.
So
Our
how many
staff has just
times
been
would you say
perfect.
she's been at Henry Wilson to work with staff?
Lately, she's been here almost every week for the past few weeks.
Okay.
But she's done 3 to
Yeah.
5 other workshop times with them, either early release time or a workshop day.
and she has one more scheduled at the end of the school year.
She's actually coming to do a PD time on Thursday from
Right.
3 to 4, and then she's coming on the 28th to do a full day and to wrap up with the staff, and looking forward with the teacher leader team to work a little bit this summer to lay a little bit more groundwork with Cheryl and I, so we can kind of get going in the fall. There'll be a little bit more work to finish up to start all of that in the fall, but we're in a really good place, and I think a lot of people are feeling more positive. But
Did you share, I was reading this while you were talking, so if I missed it, I'll apologize. Did you share what her background was, what her qualifications are?
I didn't specifically.
I asked that because if I'm a staff member who's had inconsistent leadership over the last several years, and a state consultant comes in, the first thing I want to know is, where's she been? What has she done? What are her qualifications? And why should I listen? Really? That's sometimes a very common staff member thought. So what do we know about her?
without having her direct resume in front of me,
Right.
I can sort of
Yeah.
give you her background.
Yeah.
I've gotten to know her really well,
Yeah.
and trusting to work with her and to, she comes in and she's got a lot of the same background that we do here in Farmington. She's actually worked in some inner city low-income schools, and so has been an English teacher in a high school with a very high crime rate, has had kids light things on fire in her classroom and refuse to come to school, and she's dealt with a lot of sort of the same kind of background pieces that we do with our students. She's also been an administrator, college professor, and she's been with the Northeast Collaborative for quite some time, as well as doing her own freelance consulting. She's taught and mentored various other administrators across the country, and has worked with other schools to create specific visions and missions for their districts and buildings as well. So this isn't her first time going through this piece. So.
Questions for?
We haven't scared her off.
She's very down to earth, actually. It's really refreshing.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is Henry Wilson, through the help of this consultant, is working on a strategic plan specific to the school, a vision and mission specific to the school. But the high school in Valley View will not do that? They will keep the district-wide mission, vision, and strategic plan?
They have pieces that are, high school has pieces that have been done in conjunction with NEASC. And we aren't looking to necessarily have separate pieces for every school that are divergent from, but ones that take that district piece and make it their own. And as we're looking at the strategic plan for Henry Wilson is not something that is a standalone or apart from what we're trying to do for the district, but because Henry Wilson was chosen as this pilot school for the state program for turnaround, we are also part of a case study that's being done. Basically, we're under a microscope, and so they're looking at us as a model for what can be. And so this is a structure that we're looking to replicate in the other buildings as well. And it part of it does parallel what's happening with NEASC. I don't see them as at odds with one another. There's an awful lot that it's another context of the same work. But what it's doing is, as we're moving forward with NEASC with the high school, Henry Wilson is a little bit step behind with the NEASC process, but we still have a lot of work to do in restructuring and getting pieces in place where we've had so much turnover, and to shift some of the culture there. And that's really what the focus is here. And then
It's kind of, sorry to interrupt you,
No,
it's
that's
kind of
fine.
getting Henry Wilson in line with not having had the steady leadership that the other two buildings have had. It's allowing us to sort of get our ducks in a row and take a breath and sort of analyze what we have and how we can better use what we're doing and align to both the elementary school and the high school.
Okay.
Without being like a missing piece in between. Is that?
that's
okay.
a great way to put it. Thank you for cutting to the chase and cutting me off. Sorry. Good. No, that's good.
How did Henry Wilson get chosen as a Talent for Turnaround Leadership Academy school?
The state looked at our demographic. They looked at the amount of turnover that we had had. There were 3 schools that were originally in the mix for this, and the other 2 schools said, no, we're not interested in what you have to offer. And we said, free help? Okay, let's see what you have to tell us. Certainly looking not just at, it's an offer to come in and kind of help us get some pieces in line that we don't necessarily have to do all the banging of our heads against the wall. Here, we've got somebody saying, okay, no, here, yep, that's going to be a roadblock. Here's your next step. Here's how to get beyond that. Or here's another resource that's available to you. I think probably the biggest part of this is direct access to some folks at the state that we wouldn't ordinarily have, and direct access to consultants on a even more regional level than just the state to say, okay, if this is what you need, I can put you in contact with this person, I can get you this person to come in and do this. And most of the resources through that are gratis for us. So the price there is definitely right. And having the opportunity to learn from their expertise and not have to make all the mistakes ourselves is awesome.
But how does the state know to look at our demographics and our turnover rate? Was it test scores that initially, something made somebody go, we better.
It was test scores, but I think the thing that was the biggest flag was our leadership and the number of principals that had been sitting in Jess's position over the last 6 years. And looking at that in conjunction with test scores, what that tends to do in a school, and how do we keep that from becoming a revolving door, and how do we get some stability in there so that things can move forward? Because you can have the most dynamic leader in place, but if that person only stays 3 to 4 months, it still isn't going to do what you need done. You need that, let's dig in for a few years and actually have an opportunity to get that flywheel so you get some momentum and it gets going and you can carry forward, as opposed to shifting gears each time someone new comes in and rebuilding trust. And it's that eroding trust that's been a big issue. And I think this year has been a lot about rebuilding bridges.
I just have a question. You said they were implementing a strategic plan for Henry Wilson that would take approximately 3 years. Are they willing to stay, I mean, they're going to be consulting throughout that entire time?
Hopefully, we'll know as the Trump administration rolls over, of what that will look like. We should know July, August, I think she had originally said.
We have funding through December that we're confident about. And then a lot will depend upon where this administration decides to plant some flags. And
We could potentially, if it passes, there would be another 5-year availability, whether that would be that amount of time or.
but that's the potential.
So I think if I just interpreted what you said, the state says, hey, we have this wonderful person, Andrea Reed, we think would be a great consultant for you. No.
Actually, they said, we have this wonderful program. We'd
Mhm.
love for you to come to DC with us and see what we have to offer. This is the, to kind of get a feel for, here's the major program, here's what's available to you. And we were going to be, it was one of 3, and then it was one of 2, and then at the last moment, it's, you're the only one. I said, so my question is, do I get the resources that they gave up? And the answer was yes. And I said, okay, we're in. And so we went down and met with them and had a couple of very intensive days, and had an opportunity to meet with folks from all over the country. We met with several policymakers in DC. Got to hear that there are places that are in a whole lot worse shape than we are, and but that we do have some pretty unique challenges that, you know, when we're sitting next to a table from the folks from East Chicago, they said, well, how big is your district? And we were smaller than, one of their schools. So, we were the smallest district there. But certainly, we had the entire state's worth of resources sitting with us, and we're able to, okay, let's make a plan moving forward that makes sense for us. And I think that's the thing that I've been the most encouraged about, is the fact that we're able to tailor this to what makes sense, as opposed, I was very adamantly opposed to the idea of somebody coming in and saying, here's your canned program, do it. Because that's not what we're looking for. Help us make this work here, help us make this ours. I'm all for it. Don't come in and dictate in my district. So. And they've been great.
Are there any other questions for Jess?
No, good luck.
Thank you.
Look forward to the plan.
We're excited.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that is?
that's pretty much
Okay,
it.
so no consultants currently at the high school? Okay. no consultants really at Valley View to speak of?
Other than the fact that Jamie is coming in to do PBL at the end of the year.
Right.
And, I'm hoping to continue that into next year. We'll be a little bit ahead of the curve. Right now, the DOE is in contract negotiations with BIE. And so we may be ahead of the curve as far as implementing project-based learning, which would be awesome.
You mentioned a mentor.
Yes.
Who is it?
Chris Rath, who is a former superintendent in Concord. She's a 15-year superintendent from Concord, and I'm excited to be working with her.
And so when a mentor comes in and works with you, how do we pay that person?
That's also paid through grant funding because it's professional development for me.
Okay. And you mentioned that some new administrators had requested a mentor?
That would be Ms. Richardson.
And who's
And-
that? The same person?
No.
Oh,
She's working with Esther Asbell, who's the assistant superintendent in Exeter.
okay. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Well, thank you to them.
I think it's just good to know who's in our district, what their qualifications are, and what they're accomplishing, you know? So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any old business?
Yes. One that was on the agenda. Just had a couple questions. So we're in the middle of scheduling, working out schedules at Farmington High, right? The student schedules?
We're done.
All done?
Student schedules are completed.
Okay, how'd that go? Because with the change in the bell schedule and everything.
Do you want to speak to that,
I was,
Matt?
I was like sensitive to how that was communicated. Is everybody going to really understand the changes?
The student schedules for all our students have been completed. We're doing some tweaking with some of the incoming freshman schedules.
Yeah.
We've met with the students in regard to the changes to the schedule. We've put some stuff out on the website and Facebook as to those changes, not only with the schedule, but with the diplomas. I have a letter that will be going out as well to further explain it. We've had some parents who've called and asked some questions. I've had them come in, sit down, and have a conversation with me so we can clear up some of the misconceptions that are out there. So far, all is good. I think kids are excited about the opportunity, and the staff is very excited about what the schedule holds.
Okay. Did you see any, worse off, students who couldn't get everything that they wanted to load into their schedule because of conflicts? Or better, or about the same?
It's about the same. I mean, being in a small district, in a small high school, a lot of singletons. So when you have, we'll use honors chemistry or an honors biology, you have one section of it.
Yeah.
And so depending on what other kids are looking for, we certainly look at it within Power School, and we look at it visually to make sure that we know that kids who typically are taking honors biology are taking pre-AP English, so we make sure that those two classes aren't in the same. But inevitably, there are going to be some, because other kids might want an elective that happens to fall within those pieces of it. So we have to work around some of those things, and they have to make some decisions as to what they want and what goals they have over their 4 years.
I don't know if you have a sense of this, or if you have to go back and look at numbers, but are a lot of students going for the New Hampshire Scholars higher degree diploma?
And we have a lot of kids
Great.
who push for it, and then, again, going back to making some of those decisions, their junior, senior year, they will either say, oh, you know what, I really rather go this route and go up to Lakes Region and take some of the classes there, and if that, then obviously that changes the perspective here. Others just don't want to take a physics class or things like that. So we had 14 this year, which is a decent amount for a graduating class of 62. So.
Yeah. Are a lot of students electing to forego the RTI time and do the elective like we had talked about?
Well, they'll be going to that to start off with, and then depending on how they're doing academically, then some of those other options will be open to them. But
okay.
at
So like
first, we want
mid-year
to
or
make sure
whatever?
that we're hitting the mark with those first before we allow them to expand off of that. We do have some kids who are signing up who want to take some VLAX classes and things like that actually will start this summer, and then
neat.
be able to utilize that time once we get rolling. So.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay.
Any other old business?
Sorry, just, I hate to be a nag, but did we hear back from the Department of Education yet on the process and reasons for expending from our emergency fund?
I have
Still owe the
not.
budget committee that.
I have not. I
I'm
will
sorry.
put that back to the commissioner and see if I can get an answer. I have not
Sweet.
heard
Thank you.
anything back since,
Great.
despite at least one other attempt. So I will try again.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Public participation. Okay, before we go into non-public, I'd like to end tonight, a couple things. First of all, I echo what Larry said, not only for his staff, but for the staff in general. I thought that last chapel and graduation exercises were some of the best I'd seen to date. You know, I know that it's a labor of love for Mrs. Tatro, so we thank her very much, and of course all the administrative assistants, and Mr. Jazokis, you do an excellent job emceeing the whole thing and really facilitating it all. The facility and the grounds, Larry, looked fantastic. I think in particular this year that what stood out to me was the confidence and the accomplishments of some of our special needs students. That population was very well represented, I guess I would say, this year. So thank you for your efforts with that group. So thank you all. It was an excellent event, and I was very proud to be a part of it. And then finally, I would like to say, I would like to express from our board to the community of Exeter and SAU 16 the passing of Superintendent Mike Morgan, who we found out yesterday had passed away. He was on a leave of absence, but was still their acting superintendent and had been battling an illness. He'd been a professor of mine for many classes when I was working on my master's and doing my master's work. I know he'd mentored Mr. Jazokis, Mrs. Peabody, and probably many other people that went through the administration program at Plymouth State. So our thoughts and prayers to his family and to his district. At this time, I'll say that our next meeting will, well, let's talk about our next meeting. It's scheduled to be technically
scheduled-
June 3rd, I mean July 3rd, which we're
Well, and we had said we would back that up to the 10th.
to the 10th.
With nominations that I'm hoping to have the Director of Curriculum and Instruction to have nominations into you by the 10th.
Okay.
I would love to be able to do that sooner rather than later so that I have that opportunity to get
Okay.
rolling.
So let's meet on July 10th, and then
Okay.
kind of, you'll have a better, I think, view of the landscape ahead, you know, depending on what you've filled for,
Right.
you know, I'm not trying to get out of a meeting, but
No.
it can be a quieter time of year for the school board, and if you know, I don't want to meet just to say we met.
No.
I want us to have something to accomplish. So our next meeting will be July 10th, 6:30, right here in the library. Thank you to those of you who came out this evening. Thank you to those of you who viewed in from home. I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public session 1 for a student issue. So moved by Mr. Frieda, second by Ms. McElhenney. All those in favor by roll. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.